uh, because I can't actually be in two places at once. So I've turned off most of my notifications, but there is a very small chance you will hear some pings. So Kim, you'd asked me for kind of a little bit of an intro in terms of what I do. So my background is in the commercial events industry. I started out in advertising, which I didn't quite appreciate all that time ago that would be quite useful when it comes to virtual events, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I started out in advertising, in ad agencies in the kind of early 90s when that's how things were. And then I moved into the commercial events industry. Some of you may know about the commercial events industry. It's effectively media owners who create their own events for their business brands. I'm very much in the B2B kind of business and professional space, for profit. And so I worked in that industry for very many years, rising to be a divisional director of a multi-million-pound business unit with a team of however many people. And I learned a huge amount. I mean, I often find myself speaking to people who want to start their own businesses, or want to go freelance, and I think there is a lot to be said for kind of learning an industry first from other people. And I think that the start that I had in that industry, especially in companies which, because it was then a young industry, I was working in organizations that were really happy to give young people a huge amount of responsibility. So I kind of learned fast, and was given lots of opportunities. I traveled all over the world with Informer. I worked for Informer, I worked for IR, I worked for Incisive, and with Informer I kind of traveled all over the world, which gave me a real insight into the sort of cultural differences of working in different countries and different communities. And now that we live in a more global world, that kind of really informs what I do. 20 years ago I started freelancing. I slightly fell into it, although that's not the official story, in that I've been working for a magazine called The Industry Standard. I was SVP events for Europe. We were the only business unit making any money, but that was in kind of 2001 when the whole internet was crashing. And so eventually all the companies we were writing about went bust, and then we went bust. So I started freelancing. People approached me to do different contracts with them, and over the last 20 years, I've built that up into an award-winning agency. And maybe, when we talk later on, I can talk a little bit about the sort of move to virtual. I don't want to say kind of too much about that now, but certainly for the last 20 years, we've been working supporting clients, businesses, think tanks, media owners, associations to create live and in-person, typically conferences and big events. Or you can see some of my background behind me, some of the creative work, which doesn't exist anymore because it's all digital, from some of the events that we put together. Obviously, the last 18 months created a huge change for us, a massive impact on the events and hospitality sector. I am still shocked by the number of my colleagues and competitors whose businesses have suffered or businesses haven't made it. Frankly, every time I go out now and I see an own and managed business that's still in business, like, I want to go in and shake their hand. Obviously, I'm not going to shake anyone's hand. It has been a challenge, but we have been able, which might be something we'll talk about in questions, to turn things around. So I'm about business to business events, in person, and now digital, and as people are starting to say, hybrid. And a word I heard last week is phygital, spelled PHY, as in physical digital. I don't recommend that word. It makes me feel slightly unwell, but our future is very much about incorporating the digital into whatever the world is going forward. So I think that's enough from me as an intro. Back to you, Kim.
Thank you very much, Sasha. And can I hand over to Bella to tell us a little bit of intro about yourself and your businesses?
Sure. So about 20 years ago, I got married at the age of 18, and by the age of 20, I had two little sons. And I decided that if I didn't go into studying at that point in my life, because obviously I hadn't done it before then because I got married when I was so young, that I wasn't going to be able to achieve what I wanted to achieve. So I went to night school to Barnet College, and I studied diet and nutrition with the idea that once I had the diploma, I would then go on to uni. Meanwhile, whilst I was studying, I started to help people lose weight, people without medical conditions, just kind of as an advisor. And I did that year, I did it for free to gain experience and to see how I would work and work out my methods. And in that time, basically, I saw that I was really managing to help people lose weight, and it was, thank God, really, really successful. So then after that, I launched my B7 diet program. And I used to see people face to face, and I would help them lose weight. And, you know, over the years, thank God, I've helped lots and lots and lots of people. And I never took it further. I never went on to uni after that. So I only ever work in a non-medical aspect. So I call myself a diet consultant. And then in 2018, I set up an Instagram account for B7 Diet, mainly as a recipe share. I kept it public because I thought it would be really nice to give everybody the opportunity to have good recipes and ideas, and to just show them that eating healthy should not be boring. It should be exciting. You should put love into what you eat, and you should enjoy it. And it shouldn't be this whole, you know, I'm on a diet, everything has to be bland and boring. So that's why I initially did it. And what happened with that is it kind of created a lot of global interest. And so people all around the world were then following me, and they loved the idea, and they would message me and they asked me if I could help them. Now, I was trying to think, how can I help someone who lives in America or lives in Israel? And obviously I'm used to seeing people face to face. So this is back in 2018. So kind of my online program came about very organically, because it was, how do I work with someone who's in America? I have the opportunity to do something a bit different here. So my son, who's quite techie, made me some online forms with all the questions I would ask somebody face to face, and they would fill that in. And then I worked out a way of working online through that method. And then over that year, over 2018 to 2019, I saw that I was actually having a higher success rate with my online clients and quicker than I was with my face-to-face clients. So it was almost a no-frills program. I wasn't becoming their friend. I wasn't chatting with them every week. It was purely, let's see your food diary. They would have to send me a picture of their food diary. They would have to send me a picture of their scales, all via WhatsApp or email. And I saw that it was going very, very well. So, and I was able to take on more people by, you know, not seeing people one-to-one, by not having the travel time, by working from home. And that's when I decided in 2019, I went fully online. This was already pre-COVID, that I stopped seeing clients face-to-face. So I kind of migrated all my face-to-face clients to online as well. There were ones who, you know, obviously didn't like that format. So unfortunately they dropped out, or they found other people to help them. But on the whole, most of my clients came with me, and basically was completely working online from 2019. So that's all my B7 diet side of things. Then there was the whispers of the coronavirus coming around like January 2020. My in-laws are Italian, so I heard what was happening in Italy. And my mother-in-law kept saying to me, the schools are going to close, the shops are going to close, it's going to come to London. And I was like, nah, it's never going to come here. Like, you know, we're going to be fine. It's not going to hit us. And, but there was really more and more talks. And then I started to get concerned, like with the gyms, they were going to close, and what's going to happen with, you know, all the things that we used to. So for me, a massive outlet had always been the gym. I have a big network of people who I liaise with there, and also I work out there. And then I thought, how will I manage without that personal outlet for myself? And that's when B7 Active came about in my mind. As a religious woman, if I'm exercising outdoors, I would want to be covered modestly. And there wasn't anything out there that was to my standard of gym wear. I wasn't keen on just putting on a skirt on top of my leggings. I wanted a sports skirt. I wanted it to be dry fit. I wanted it to be high quality. And so I went about creating it in lockdown 1. So yeah, that's my background, basically.
Fantastic. So essentially you pivoted and got ready for COVID before we'd even heard of COVID back in 2018 when you went fully online.
Yes.
So yes, you clearly had you knew something that the rest of us didn't. Sasha, can I come back to you and ask you how you pivoted to online when COVID struck, and what challenges did you face when doing that with getting everyone used to all the tech? Oh, you're on mute, Sasha.
Rookie mistake. It's a really good question. So, I mean, like Bella, I had a sense of what what's coming. A very good friend of mine is in Singapore, and in Asia, obviously, you know, things were happening faster, although they were kind of much more closed down about things. But I kind of knew what was happening. I think, like everyone, I didn't know quite how big it was going to be. We did our last in-person event for International Women's Day conference in the city on March the 8th. And we, you know, people came. We had American speakers who were kind of making jokes about it. People weren't shaking hands, they were doing elbows. Nobody quite got it. The last in-person event that I went to was on Friday, March the 13th. Of last year. I was shortlisted for an award. I'm actually the Conference News Event Producer of the Year. It seems ironic when there are no in-person events, and so otherwise I would not have gone to this awards lunch. And I actually kept calling them saying, are you going to cancel? Are you going to cancel? And you know, so I went to that knowing that the world was about to shut down. And I'd already started asking my team to start looking. I knew that we would do digital events. It doesn't suit everyone. My business model is a very agile business model. So I have a virtual team of contractors. In fact, I have the business model that post-pandemic everybody wants. There's no office, there's no overhead, which is now the way many people are going. And so I already knew that we would be able to ride through whatever was coming. And it was actually just about working out what was going to be the best technology to do it. So I spent that awards lunch texting with my brother and sister, trying to get my dad into hospital because he had COVID in Manchester. I came home by the Tuesday, I had COVID, who knows where I caught it. And so in that few weeks when my husband and I were really very sick, the team were researching all the different platforms, you know, assessing them. We'd put together a grid of all the different functionalities we'd be looking at. And so by the time that I was recovering, we had a great shortlist and had worked out which was the likely platform. We're not tied to any particular platform. And at the same time, I started talking to my clients about taking their events online. And I think that we had a combination of, we had an agility that we were prepared to do something new. Risk taking, you know, I invested massively in partnering with this platform. But also I have a pretty techie team already. So of the whole team that I work with, there was really only one person who is a brilliant on-site person, and people love her on site, but she's not comfortable with the tech. And so she's not sadly been able to work with us in this last 16 months. But everybody else has picked it up, learned new things. You know, I think one of our values is that, you know, we're always curious and we're always learning new stuff. And for everybody, the pandemic has absolutely been about learning new ways of doing things. I mean, I think back to 16 months ago when, you know, people couldn't get on a Zoom call and how does it work? You know, we've all learned a huge amount. So I have hired new people with different skills. I mean, what I do now is I basically make TV shows. So our live events are pretty much TV shows. There may be pre-recorded. I mean, they are live in the digital studio to a high production value. I now direct all the stings and interstitials. We make show reel videos, you know, we make all the different assets that get used during the day. We create, I mean, we always had running orders for events. Events have running orders and ours were good. You know, now our production schedules look like TV production schedules. We always wrote scripts, you know, for whoever was, you know, the chair of the event. But now that script is like a TV script because we're signposting people around the whole platform and encouraging them to sort of engage in the event. So I've basically built a new business and I've got the most phenomenal team. I mean, events are always about teamwork, you know, and actually events, I mean, I imagine many people here may have had a personal simcha and they've organized an event, and so people will know that the sign of a great event is, you know, you can't see under the hood and it all just goes seamlessly on the day. But I think I would say in our experience there's probably 4 to 5 times more work in preparing, doing all the pre-production for a digital event. And so I have a phenomenal team of videographers, animators, tech people, script writers, production, logistics, and it's been an amazing journey, but it is an entirely new business.
Wow, so having to learn an entirely new skill and start from scratch pretty much. Bella, can I ask you, on a day-to-day basis, how did COVID how does COVID impact your business? Obviously, you were online at the start of COVID, but did it have an impact? And then how did it impact your launch of your new activewear range?
So at the beginning, it was really hard because here I was having to help all my clients, my B7 diet clients, helping them lose weight, helping them maintain their weight loss. And we didn't even know if we were going to be able to have toilet paper at that time. So it was like everybody was in a panic. I myself had a lot of challenges to deal with because there was personal stuff going on. People were unwell in my family. Unfortunately, we went through some really difficult times in the early days. And then also I have 5 kids. So there was homeschooling involved. So it was like, what do I do now? But like, obviously I had to like focus on my business. And what I completely changed the approach in terms of weight loss for my clients. I was like, okay, guys, each one of my clients I deal with one-to-one, and I would take them, as each person, and I would say, okay, let's just work on maintaining your weight loss for now. We're not going to expect any weight loss, just maintenance, and let's just hang on. We've all just got to hold on because we don't know what's going to be tomorrow. We were in a completely unknown situation. No one really knew what was coming, what was happening. So my job was just to ask all my clients to just keep and maintain their weight loss. So I changed my whole approach, almost changed my whole diet plan, if you like, and expectation levels. On the one hand. On the other hand, people were no longer like going out. There was no socializing, restaurant eating. So a lot of the clients who started with me during lockdown actually did tremendously because they started in that situation. So they just took the whole thing on board as it was. And it's actually now getting used to going out to eat again and socializing again. That's become the change now. But obviously this is easier to deal with now. So it was very hard. And it was a day-by-day situation for me. And the reason, and then a lot of people ask me, like, why did I start a whole new company, a whole new business when I was like dealing with way too much? And to be honest, B7 Active is a very creative outlet for me. I studied art in school. I loved it. And then my whole business life has not been creative. And I've missed that side, and I love fashion design, and I was always, working with fashion when I was in school for projects and stuff. So it was like getting back to that. So for me, that was an outlet for me, was creating B7 Active. That was like a highlight of my lockdown, and I got my whole family involved. My oldest son, he's studying computer science and AI at King's. He helped me with all the tech. He helped me with the website and things like that. My 19-year-old son, everyone was home. So my 19-year-old son, he did the media for me, and everybody helped me in the family with B7 Active. It became like a family business. Obviously, B7 Diet is very different because it's very confidential and it's very one-to-one, and I had to always go off in private to my room. But B7 Active became like a bonding, family, fun, creative outlet.
Thank you, Bella. Sasha, apart from the obvious having to move your events from face-to-face to online, how on a day-to-day basis did COVID impact your business and your work life?
So I think one of the main impacts is that there are members of my team that I haven't met. There are people who came on board during the pandemic who I've never met in person. And, the business has grown around 450% in the last year. And so we've got very many new clients, and most of them I haven't met. And I feel like I really know them, because when you are working on an event with someone, like, you're really, really talking to them. There's one client, we do all the alumni events for Queen's College, Oxford, and we did a couple of digital ones, and then sort of between lockdowns we were able to do a hybrid where we could go on site and film and broadcast it to the alumni. And so there I was in Queen's College, Oxford, and I'm like, nice to meet you, I say to the provost, and she's like, but we already know each other. I'm like, actually, we've never met. So I think that makes a difference. And I think also everybody's experiencing this, but although the technology is great, and had this happened 10 years ago, we would all be in a very different place. There are limitations of the technology, the communication with teams, communication with clients, seeing that, everybody, I mean, very much as Bella said, everybody has their own story of the pandemic and their own experience. And so dealing with people where they're at, you know, there's been a very big focus on you know, mental well-being and mental health. And so I'm very conscious, much more so than I might have been 18 months ago, of where people are at, what their situations are, you know, how much they can take on as both team members. And when I'm dealing with clients, you know, when we do a team call like this with clients, you know, we might be briefing an organization of 100 people, talking them through what's going to happen at the event. You know, some of those team members have a lovely home office, but some of those team members, often the more early career people, you know, they're in a flat share and there's people's laundry behind them and there's people going to their own meetings in their living room. And so working in a different way, you know, we're always really happy to be agile and learn new stuff, but it's been different.
I have a question for Sasha on the chat. It's a question from Tanya. Tanya, would you like to unmute yourself and ask Sasha the question yourself? Tanya, are you there? Would you like to ask the question? Oh, sorry. You've sent it straight to me, but
sorry, my tech's not working.
Don't worry at all. I just thought you might like to ask the question directly yourself.
Hi, Sasha. Hi, Bella. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so inspirational, really. I think just your point, Sasha, 4 to 5 times more work than face-to-face. That's incredible. So time is money. How do you actually go about changing your model, you know, quite dramatically like that, and convincing the clients of the quality, you know, of doing that when you've got more costs? Really intrigued to hear about that.
Hi Tanya, nice to see you. I've not seen you in person for a little while. It's a really interesting question. This is an entirely new business model. And so I have spent many late night hours with my spreadsheets working on the business model, because it's a completely different thing. Costs are different. You know, before I had, you know, for those of you with an accounting bent, I had a higher margin business because there were fewer costs. Because now, you know, for an in-person event, we are running the event for somebody and we're working with the venue, and we're working with the various different suppliers, whereas now we are everything. So, and it's a much more stressful thing to do. You know, we've got the Royal College of Anaesthetists running their College Tutors event, which would be 400 people in Cardiff today and tomorrow, and they're all online on Hopin. And so we are the venue, which we're paying for, which is the event platform. We are the stage set. There's no external vendor for that. We are the AV and production people. We are and so it's an entirely different business. So it's a lower margin business model because there's many more costs, but there is a higher volume, and the costs are relative. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's not really apples and apples, because when we organised an in-person event for somebody, that was a service, and now we are offering a service and a production platform. So previously we were an event agency doing all the event management for you, and we might outsource all the various pieces to production companies. Now we are an event agency and effectively a production company. What clients like about us is that there are lots of people out there who just do the production. So they were AV companies, and they're really good at digital production. So they know how to line up all the people. But what they don't have, which is the expertise that we bring, and that's our differentiating factor, is that we understand the content. I was saying to a friend the other day that I felt like we've been quite lucky during the pandemic, and he said, you know, to some degree you create your luck. But I do think one of the factors is that digital events are of the kind of events that we do are absolutely about content. And because my team and me have a really deep content background and understand how to curate that content and how to design the event experience, we do a very different thing than a production company that says, sure, it's a 3-day event and, you know, we'll stream 100 speakers. We create the event. We often create the budget for people so that, you know, we've got all the expertise about if you're charging your clients, you know, people typically charge less for a digital event, but how much less can you charge? How do you create sponsorship packages that are still attractive to people digitally? So the overall service we offer is more significant than competitors, but it's effectively a new business model. And I spent many hours at the beginning fine-tuning and having lengthy discussions with my accounting advisors about what was the best way to build a business model. And I'm lucky that I'm quite numerate, and so it was obvious to me how it would work, but it's effectively a new business model.
Thank you for answering that question. Bella, incredibly brave to launch a new brand during the pandemic. You've already told us what the insight was behind it, because you wanted to be exercising outside and you wanted modest activewear, which you couldn't find on the market. Can you tell us about the challenges that you faced trying to launch it, your new brand?
So when I went into it, I didn't think about it properly, because maybe if I would have known what was involved, I might not have done it. So it's a good thing that I didn't really know. So I just sort of jumped into it with a lot of enthusiasm. Challenges is that I work with, obviously a lot has been amazing, and literally from God, from the fact that I'm working with an amazing manufacturer and suppliers, and I had no idea of this business before. So it was it's really unbelievable how that all came together. And it was hours of going through vlogs late at night and sifting through what could be good companies and what wouldn't be good. And in the end, I settled to work with an agent. So that way I get the best service. Obviously, it's a higher cost to me, but I know that my stuff is quality. And it also means that I work with a global team. So I have a designer who helps me, I design the clothing, but then there's a professional designer who works in Mexico, and then the company is actually, I think it's based in Beverly Hills, and I'm working with someone in London, and we produce it all in China. So it's like a whole global team. So that can be a bit challenging sometimes. I think for me, the biggest challenge has been with the COVID delays, when I've expected things to come in and they haven't come in, and then they've been delayed a lot. But obviously, I can say it's due to COVID, which is a great excuse anyway these days. But it's genuine. So that's been frustrating. I also sort of said, I don't want B7 Active and b7active.com to be something that's a stress. I always wanted it to be something that's enjoyable. And on the whole, it has been. So I've been really lucky with that. But it's also been very challenging to create what I want to create that looks good, that's still modest and functions properly. So for example, I've had a lot of difficulty making light colored t-shirts that are half sleeves or long sleeves, but then they can't be transparent. So, but I want this kind of material and I want this kind of thinness. So it's like working out everything that I want, including the quality, including the look, including the style, the fashion, and all the technical stuff that comes with activewear, to merge that together. So far, the products that I've launched, which is 2 different types of sports skirts, t-shirts, they've gone amazingly. And I'm so proud of how they've turned out. I'm wearing them all the time, and to see people around with them and to see my sales, it's been brilliant. And to go around the world with the sales is just unbelievable. But there's still some more products that are in the pipeline. And until I have them, until I see them, I'm always a bit nervous about it.
Sure. And just staying with you, Bella, could you just tell us how you juggle everything? Which elements of the, yeah, so I thought that might be the answer, but which elements do you delegate, if any, versus what do you insist on doing yourself? And how do you decide what to outsource?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Okay, so obviously a lot of stuff doesn't get done, as you can imagine. Homeschooling, I was not sitting next to my kids doing it all with them. I would print out every morning all their Zooms, all their classes, and then I would sort of tick off as I went along, but I wasn't there with them. So that didn't get done. And then my husband had to help them with their homework in the evening. So that was a challenge in itself. And stuff around the house doesn't get done. Decluttering, that everyone decluttered their house. I did not declutter my house. So that doesn't get done. I delegate B7 Active because, as I said, my son helps me with the tech. My husband helps me with accounts. My other son helped me with the media. And I love input. So I have my Instagram account at B7 Active, and I ask my followers about colors, and I make it very interactive. With B7 Diet, it's completely down to me. I obviously cannot delegate anything. It's highly confidential. Each client, you know, even if they send me a voice note, I have to make sure that I go and listen to it privately. I'm exceptionally careful about that. No one's allowed to touch my phone in case a message pops up. I have a separate business WhatsApp account for it, but still, it's all down to me. And because of COVID, and because I have a policy that I will always help anybody who I've helped in the past, which has been for the past 20 years, my client numbers are permanently running at a very high amount. So I've actually had to shut down on taking on new clients for a couple of times this year. So I'm actually not taking on new clients at the moment now. And a lot of people approach me because of my Instagram account, have amazing before and afters. And obviously it's a very much word of mouth thing. You know, you see someone and then they've lost weight and people ask them how they've done it. And it's really sad that I have to turn people away. And I'm now telling people when they contact me that, you know, to reach out in September, but I can never have like a physical date for them just because I'm one person and I have to connect with each of my clients. Once I start getting mixed up with my different clients, I know that my client numbers are too high. So I have to really make sure that that stays at a manageable level for me.
Fantastic, thank you. Sasha, same question to you. How do you juggle everything? Which bits do you delegate? What do you have to do yourself? And how do you decide which bits to outsource?
I mean, Bella, I'm completely with you. You know, I did not have that. I mean, listen, I did bake bread because I like baking, but I did not have that. Hey, I'm not doing any work. I'm just making soda bread and like every single cupboard in my house is just so tidy. My house is actually more untidy than it's ever been. And so I think you have to give yourself permission to not do everything, which is kind of what Bella was saying, you know, and I don't have to be perfect. I mean, I have to say, although I'm an extrovert and I miss socializing and I miss people, but, you know, we did a lot of Shabbat entertaining. And, you know, I've probably let go of whatever the other side of this is like, you know, making 6 ottolenghi salads every week for Shabbat lunch or every other week. And so, you know, I have freed up some time because, you know, we were in a very social community and lots of entertaining. So that has freed up some time. But I think, you know, the juggling is about, and I'm not good at this, I'm learning more about this, being good to myself. I'm a perfectionist. I am an absolute perfectionist and I just want everything done really well. And that's why our clients come to us and why our clients come back to us, because I've got a whole team of people who deliver really high quality stuff. So actually, I have to let go of, you know, things not being totally perfect. What do I delegate? I work really hard on getting my kid to fold laundry. I've been teaching him to cook so that he can do stuff, but also within the team. I mean, you know, the way that the business has changed is that in the previous model, I had a lot of hands-on client delivery that I was doing with team members. And now there's such a high volume that I'm doing business development. And then I have a group of event directors who each deliver their own events. And I will come in, you know, especially to talk about the creative aspects and the user experience design, but there's a huge logistics, operational, technical production job, which, you know, I think of myself as someone who knows how to conduct the orchestra, but can't necessarily play every instrument, you know, so I really am happy to delegate the day-to-day running of the logistics of the events to the great people in my team. But I will make sure that the creative magic happens, that if there are challenges with the client, you know, we do those, you know, we resolve those together. And I think my challenge around scaling a business in such a short period of time is kind of learning to let go of stuff and leave people to do a great job.
We have a question from Simon Rothstein. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, hi, I think this has been absolutely fantastic. It's amazing hearing how you both sort of adapted in the pandemic. I saw with Bella's coming, I saw JC did an article on you earlier this year, which I remember, I remember reading, I thought that was absolutely great. My question is, how has Work Avenue helped you? Sort of how have you used Work Avenue during this period to make these changes?
Should we go to Bella first to answer that question?
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much. And it was an amazing honor to be in the JC. And I even did something on the front page and I was like, wow, it was just brilliant. With Work Avenue, I haven't actually worked with them or used their amazing services, but I very much support everything that Work Avenue stands for. And I think it's just one of the most important things out there, how it gets people doing what they want to do. Back when I wanted to study diet and nutrition, I was a very young mom and I knew I wanted to do something. There was nothing like Work Avenue out there. And there was these adverts on like morning TV that I used to watch back in the day. And it was about courses, and that's how I went about it. And it was a very hard way to find what I was looking for in terms of courses. And it was a real struggle. And if something like Work Avenue would have been around 20 years ago, it would have made my life a lot easier. So that's why I feel very strongly and passionate about Work Avenue. I've been involved in their campaigns, their charity campaigns, hosting a page for them, just because I feel like this is an amazing resource for anybody who needs it. So Kala Kova to Work Avenue, and I hope it helps everybody.
Sasha, over to you.
Thank you. You know, I too am a kind of long-standing friend and supporter of Work Avenue. Many years ago, when you, I don't know if you were involved then, Ken, when you moved into the new building and did the whole rebrand, I did a whole pro bono project around the branding, positioning, and I think the services that Work Avenue delivers are really phenomenal and can have a really big impact on the community. And so I am a long-standing supporter and delighted to kind of be here talking to you today.
Thank you. There's a question from Anna, which is directly to Bella about getting on your list. Anna, if you look further up the chat, you'll see Bella's website, so you can go onto that. Bella, I don't know if you want to quickly address that. I know you said you're not taking on new clients, but I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, so I mean, I would like to address it because I think people find it very confusing that I don't take on new clients and I don't have a waiting list. Like, people say to me, can't you just write my name down? So what I did was, when I reopened, like I can only take on a very few amount of new clients per week, because it's quite a lot for them to take in. And I want to be able to help them and answer their questions, always one-to-one. And it's just me, I don't have a team. So I'm very limited to the amount of new clients I can actually take on. And I offer them like full support from, first thing in the morning till 7 p.m. at night till my WhatsApp cuts off. They can text me, they can be in touch with me anytime. So I'm very limited in the sense of getting each client and connecting with each client, knowing what each client needs. So I actually filled in new client slots all the way till the end of July. And then I was like, we have a holiday booked for August. I don't know if it's going to happen, obviously, but I just had to shut that down from August. So I'm telling people who, want my support to reach out in September, but I really hope that they find help or they manage, to do something for themselves in the meantime, because the biggest shame for me is when someone wants to lose weight and they want to do it now, and I'm like, reach out in September. I feel bad, but I just have to. That's something that I have to do in order to keep my up the service, I guess, to keep helping people. So I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, that's completely understandable. And one of the hardest things when you're running a business is saying no and turning away clients, isn't it? Because you feel like you can't say no.
Yeah.
So we only have a.
Can I just say this is Anna here. Sorry, Bella, I just wanted to check what you actually offer in terms of coaching and how it works, but there was nothing on this website that you've provided. Is there any other additional source that I could just explore while we're waiting and talking?
Yeah, so I have it's on Instagram at B7Diet, and that's where you'll see recipes and you'll see like inspirational stories from my clients. And that's where most of the information is. My program it's a calorie controlled diet, but it's made in accordance to the foods that my clients will enjoy. So they'll fill in a form of all the things that they like to eat or they can tolerate to eat. And then I will make them a diet plan based on their preferences. And then each week we weigh in and they have to fill in a food diary. So, and it's, the constant support.
So I'm afraid we've only got 3 minutes left in our very interesting session. So I wonder if I can ask you both. I'll go back to Sasha first. If you could just tell us briefly, what are you having to grapple with right now? What are you finding a challenge right now?
I think the challenge right now, which is a lovely position to be in, is actually just having too much work, even though, you know, I've exponentially grown the team. Because quality is paramount, we won't take on things that we can't do. So, you know, similar to Bella in a way, it's, you know, handling those clients, managing their expectations, you know, finding ways to help them that might not necessarily be, you know, us directly helping them. And I think for me personally, I think what's been fascinating about the last 18 months is to see the huge amount of content on the social media that I'm on, especially around LinkedIn, people who I've known professionally for years talking about their mental health, and sort of balancing things. And so I think for me, I mean, I could work, I mean, for the first 6 months, I worked 18 hours a day. And that's just not sustainable. And so for me, the challenge is about kind of getting balance, you know, turning off my Slack and my WhatsApp and my Discord and all my, you know, channels of communication. And so I've actually been learning Yiddish on Duolingo as a kind of little activity. Everyone seems to have like a lockdown project, and my lockdown project has been like growing a new business. So for me, it's about, you know, just getting that balance in my life. And I've had a lot of fun learning Yiddish.
Wow. And this clearly isn't a problem that you face, but a problem that most people face when starting a new business is finding new customers. Can you give us a brief idea of any ideas that you would have for them? Sasha,
Sure.
sorry, you again,
Sure.
and then I'll go back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know in the past I've talked with people and work company about that. I mean, I think there's quite a few ways to do it. So the first is to have a really clear sense of who your customers are. You know, have people talk about having a customer avatar. So know who your customers are and really draw, like there's a whole bunch of things online. You can Google customer avatar sheet and you'll find a way of like thinking, so, but what do you want to think about? Who are they? Where are they? What are their problems? How do you solve them? How do you help people? Once you know who your avatar is, then you can start saying, right, where am I going to find those people? You know, and that might be in particular communities or networks or associations. I mean, if you're in the business to business space, it might be, you know, in associations or networks or in particular media. If you're in the consumer space, it can be more challenging. Many, many years ago, I ran a sandwich delivery company. And so everybody wants to have a sandwich for lunch. You know, if you have a more niche business with a very specific need, then knowing who your customers are and working out how to find them. Social media is great, but social media is part of the mix of marketing. You know, just putting your stuff out on Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram, for some people that can be really successful. For very many people, that does need to be part of the bigger mix. The key thing I would say to people starting and building a business is grow your own email list. Find ways to get people's email addresses. Have something on your website where you give away a checklist or a cheat sheet and people give you their email address so that you can start emailing people. If you've got an email list, then you can start selling to people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to tell you all, we're out of time. We now have our networking session starting right now, but I wanted to say the most enormous thank you to Sasha and Bella. That was absolutely brilliant. So interesting, so insightful. I think you're getting lots of claps. I hope everyone found that very, very useful. And thank you everyone for attending, and hope to see you in the networking sessions next. Thank you everyone. Thank you again.
Great to meet you.
Thanks.